Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Ghost Biker Garage. I am your host, the Ghost Biker, and again, this week I am at the historic Scott County Jail. Not at the garage this week, we've got a lot going on, so I'm here in Huntsville getting things ready for our Fireman's 4th of July Festival here at the Huntsville Mall, which is right here. The jail's located right at the end of the mall here, and so we're hoping to have a great turnout this weekend and have some cool events here at the jail, which I'll tell you about here in a few minutes. But a lot of really cool things here on the Fireman's 4th at the Huntsville Mall that we're going to be celebrating over the next I think the next 3 days, technically the 3rd and the 4th, but I think there's some things going on the 2nd as well. So I want to say hello to everyone over here in the chat room. And if you don't mind, just make sure if you have any questions for myself or tonight's guest that you put them over here in the comments. And if you wouldn't mind, please put them in all caps just so that I make sure that whenever we're going through and, talking, that I don't miss you and I'm able to get to your question, because I'll tell you, I've been excited about having tonight's guest on since I booked him. And, we typically tend to book the guests a couple months out. And, if you've seen the advertisements, you know who I'm talking about. But he does a lot of different podcasts. And so I'm excited about some of the things that we're going to be talking about tonight. So I know you guys are probably going to have some questions as well. But just to kind of talk a little bit about everything that's going on, like I said, we've got the Fireman's 4th Festival happening here at Huntsville and the jail. We are celebrating our Red, White, and Boo here. And, we've got some really fun things going with that. We are theming our flashlight tours and after dark tours around that here at the jail. If Selly, our jail cat, is walking here behind me, but if you guys happen to notice anything, I know during some of the last couple podcasts, we've had, some weird sounds. We've also had some people have seen some things behind me. So if you do happen to notice anything, just go ahead and pop it over there into the comments as well. But anyways, as I was saying, we are celebrating our Red, White, and Boo event here. Dr. Sumner has put the address to check out the dates of these events. That's www.historicscottcojail.com. And we've got those events posted up there. You can get tickets the days of the event, but we do stop selling them at 4 p.m. in the evening just so we can get a good head count and such. But we are offering the flashlight tours. We do have a couple haunted history ghost walks. And those ghost walks, they do cover a lot of history from here in Huntsville, as well as some of the haunted ghost stories. And it ends with an hour-long flashlight tour here of the jail. So we've got some of those. I am going to pull that up right quick just so you guys can see where you can purchase all of that from. But we've got those events up there, and we have a lot. Red, White, and Boo is going to be going for the first 2 weeks of July. And so we have those dates up there. We have sold out of a few tickets, but we do have those, as well as we have a few tickets left to tomorrow night's Ghost of the Past Haunted History Walk. I think we've got 4 tickets left of that. So, if you're in the area this weekend, go on there and, check out our website, check out some of the fun events that we've got going on here at the jail, as well as, bring your family out. We are going to be open during the day from 11 to 4 through tomorrow. On Saturday, we'll be open 9 to 4. And then on Sunday and Monday, we're going to have extended hours. Typically, we're open 11 to 4 on those days, but we're going to have extended hours throughout the holiday weekend. They shoot off fireworks here, and also just with all the food trucks and all the stuff going on. So make sure if you come to the mall, you walk on down past everything going on, come down here to the jail, take a day tour. I know on the 4th of July, we're doing some special events out in the outside rec yard, where with the purchase of an adult ticket, you will get a chance to play some of our games that we've got out in the rec yard, and it will give you the opportunity to be able to get some cool merchandise, some cool prizes that we're we're giving away here. So so just stay tuned for more information, more ads, and different stuff that we're going to be having about that as we lead up to the 4th of July festival. So so I'm going to go ahead and get to tonight's guest, because like I said, we've got a lot of really cool things that we're talking about, and different things that we want to get into. We will, at the very end of the show, I will give a few reminders of events that I've got going on here with Ghost Biker, as well as a few reminders about the 4th of July events that are coming up, because that's one of those things. We just got the jail decorated. We had a photo shoot last Thursday. So so we had to kind of wait, to put up the 4th of July decorations. So we got the jail all decked out in our red, white, and blue. And, we're really been working hard on some cool things that we've got coming up for this weekend. So, so anyways, going to get to tonight's guest. He is, and again, most of you all know him. He is the Haunted M.D. Dr. Molnar is a hospital-based physician practicing internal medicine who is also interested in what happens to our souls when our bodies die. He began investigating the paranormal in 2012 and started Haunted M.D. in 2018 by combining his passions for understanding the afterlife with being a doctor. Dr. Molnar uses his science and medical background, as well as both academic and non-academic methods of understanding, to research what happens to our souls or consciousness after we die. So I'm going to go ahead and bring on my friend, Dr. Molnar.
Hey, how are you? Thanks for having me on.
Well. Yeah, thank you for taking the time to come on. I know you've been really busy. I've been following the last little bit that you've had quite a few investigations and projects that are experiments and stuff that you've been working on.
Yeah. Well, through May till this past weekend, had a couple of paracons, and then I had like an investigation almost every weekend. So yeah, I've been pretty busy, and I gotta make you tell you something. So I went to the grocery store before I did the show, and you're a spirit investigator when you find a cool flashlight. So this flashlight has a light there, it has a light there, and it has like a clamp and a magnet. Like,
wow.
But I went for groceries, right? I bought two of these. I'm like, hey, I can use those on investigations.
So is that kind of common for you? Are you one of those people that it's, you go somewhere, you see something and think, hey, this could be cool to use on investigation, or this is a great gadget? Is that
yes, you? Yes. In fact, it's funny. A few years ago, I was at Walmart, and believe it or not, I shop at Walmart, and I saw it was a cool motion light. It was a battery activated motion light, probably something you'd have in your house, like when you would come home and it would light the stairs or something for you. But I bought that, and it's like one of my coolest tools I've had. It was this motion activated light from Walmart. It was, like almost like 180 degree, field of view, and it was real bright. And you could it didn't make any noise, but you could set it out, and it was really good at, catching motion when there wasn't anything there, kind of thing. So yeah, you kind of keep your eye out. The cat balls, you probably see me use those cat balls.
Yep.
In fact, the store I went through tonight, when I got that flashlight, that's usually where I get a lot of the cat balls from. I'll kind of breeze down and see if they have any, and then buy. They're probably like, who keeps buying cat balls?
Yeah, that's what I found, that a lot of people, when they come here to the jail, one of the biggest tools that's been catching on probably over the last couple months, a lot of people have had motion detectors. That's one of those things.
Right.
And now, of course, cat balls, those are one of the things that's really active here, especially on the 3rd floor. But it's amazing to me, and they'll get a lot of activity with these motion detectors.
Yeah, well, and with the cat toys, I actually was going back and forth today. I went to Hinsdale House. This is back a while ago, 2 months ago, when we did like more of a scientific approach. But I went ahead and put some cat toys out, and we had an episode where the cat toy went off, but we also had some curious stuff on the scientific equipment they were running. So we were kind of debating back and forth, like, well, what triggers the cat ball? Could it be EMF triggering it? Is it, this and that? So it was funny. We were kind of doing a more in-depth look at the cat ball and what makes it work.
Let me ask you about that, because we did have somebody that came in on one of our tours, and they asked the question. They were talking about, is it the force of the movement, or is it are they magnetic, that sort of thing? What have you found to be through your studies at looking at some of these tools?
I think with the cat toy, I think it's something's physically touching it. Now, I guess you can't totally exclude the idea that maybe it's using its energy to activate it. But to activate it, you gotta touch it or shake it. Use some kind of physical contact. And today, actually, we were kind of going through some things because we were questioning could EMF do it. So I kind of set up a K2 meter and the cat balls, and I used my cell phone, and I was texting back and forth. You could see the K2 meter go off all the way to red, but the cat toys would never activate. So it doesn't seem like, at least EMF from a cell phone doesn't seem to activate the cat toys. To me, and the reason why I like using them, even from a science standpoint, is something's got to, in my mind, something mechanically is moving those things. I think it's more of a mechanical force. Although I guess the spirit energy could trigger it, I guess. But to me, I tend to think of it as something mechanically is moving it or tapping on it or something. So for me, that's kind of cool when you have that kind of mechanical interaction versus, some kind of energy. Because, people, the K2 can this and that, and you never know. And it's like if something mechanically, like the motion sensor is another one where something has to trigger that. Just like the cat toy, something has to kind of physically trigger that or physically move in front of a motion sensor. And for me, that gets me excited because, that's something you can feel more strongly about.
Absolutely. And is that something you do when you hear about a new tool or, something that, you're trying out for yourself? Do you always kind of go and do some test runs like that before to see if you can sort of figure out the mechanics of it?
Usually at home, I will before I take it out, kind of see what goes on. Because I just realized, actually, it's funny you mentioned that. One of the motion sensors I use, it's a 360, so it shoots in 4 directions. And I realized in a couple of investigations that it seemed like it went off right away, right after I set it up. I was thinking, like, some instruments you got to be careful. They have they'll cycle once you set them up, and like they'll sit there for a minute or two, and then they'll go off, or they'll kind of getting a baseline. It'll make you think that you're getting interactions. So I realized that these motion sensors are doing that, and it turns out that I think that's just a normal part of the cycle. But if you didn't know that or test that out, you keep thinking you're getting paranormal activity. So so it seems like this motion sensor that I use, that I like it. It's pretty good. It goes through a setup cycle. So you set it down, and then maybe after like 30, 40 seconds, it goes all around and lights all the lights up in some pattern, and then it's okay. But at first, it actually fooled me a few times because I'm like, wait a minute, that thing went off already, and here it's just a cycle of it. So I try to do that as much as I can. I'll be honest, I'm not always the best about it. But eventually I will get around to checking it out and testing it to see, what really does make this thing go off. And
yeah. Well, I know I first met you in person at an event in Virginia. We were both speaking at, gosh, I think that was in like 2019. And one thing I noticed, was your dowsing rods that you had affixed in like in a stand.
Oh yeah.
And I absolutely loved that. We didn't really get the opportunity to speak because I was over there at my booth and you were kind of across the way.
Yeah.
But, I love the dowsing rods, and I really like how you take out that human element by having them on the stand.
Right. And I haven't gotten the move. And that's actually, one of the things I like to try out if I got out kind of on my own a little bit is to try that out and give it more time and kind of see. The other thing I have is a compass. I like to try a compass out too and see. But yeah, the dowsing rods, so far I haven't caught them moving without somebody holding them, so it's kind of curious. I don't know if that means that the spirits have to use our energy, or are we doing something subconsciously to make them move? Because I've used them myself and had some pretty interesting reactions. And to me, the times where I got some pretty convincing stuff, it seemed like they were moving on their own. I don't think I was moving them, but you just never know for sure. But it was like crossing for yes, bring apart for no, and so it's interesting to take that out of there. Actually, it's the same thing with the pendulum. I was gonna do the same thing with the pendulum and stuff too. So.
Yeah, I've used the pendulum on the tripod before to see if I can get any movement. And that's something I've always been curious about because I love the dowsing rods. And,
Yes.
I've been around different people, and it's interesting to see how people connect with their tools, because there's some people, there's some teams like I investigate with Soul Sisters Paranormal a lot. And I use the Dowsing rods. They prefer, K2 meters, just having this connection, the preference with the tools. I know I took my Dowsing rods and started doing some experiments with them, kind of like like an Estes method almost, but by printing out pictures of different things and using them as like to point at the pictures, and then blindfolding myself and either having someone else ask a question or being sort of like, say for instance, I did this at Waverly Hills once. I had like a picture of a doctor, a picture of a nurse, picture of kids on a playground, and then like a picture of like a random dog. Had someone place them throughout, and then started asking questions. I didn't know where they placed them. I was blindfolded to see if we could get them to point to the pictures.
Wow. Yeah.
And it actually worked. Of course, I'm with you. Sometimes it's kind of like, okay, are they using my energy, or are they using, or is this something subconsciously I'm doing?
Yeah.
And I've had some really interesting responses with that. So to see
That's
you
pretty
take
cool.
that,
Yeah.
to see you take that and take that experiment to another level, to actually truly take the human out of the experience.
Yeah.
That's really cool to see if you get responses. Because again, it doesn't mean it doesn't work just because they may not move. It may be something they're pulling off of us.
Yeah, no, they haven't moved yet. And I've even tried them. We were talking earlier about the office. The office where I work. I even tried them there. And even let them even put a camera on them overnight, because they're I don't do a lot of night shifts. When I do, I kind of bring stuff in and see what I can get. But yeah, I've even had a camera on them and never seen them move. But you're like waiting, you want them to move, and so yeah, there does from the stuff I've done so far. It seems like somebody has to hold them for them to work. But I think I'd still like to do more work on it though, and kind of get to a haunted place by myself and kind of try some of that stuff out. So,
Well, we've got a couple questions. Oh, go ahead.
About the Dowsing rods, I had somebody else tell me to add an EMF pump. I actually did a podcast just a couple of years ago. Somebody brought up the idea of adding like an EMF pump or a battery, something to add some charge to the environment that maybe since you're not holding them, the spirits need like an alternative energy source. So that was an interesting concept I haven't tried yet, was adding some kind of additional energy to the environment or whatever. So
that's an interesting idea, because I do have an energy pump, but I've never used that in conjunction with the Dowsing rods. I've used it with other tools, but that would be interesting to see, because I'm sure we give off a level of energy anyways. And then of course, each person probably gives off different energy levels as to why some maybe works with some and not with others. So that would be interesting. We got a couple different questions here already. D Hoot says, did you make or buy the Dowsing rod stand?
So the Dowsing rods I bought, the stand I bought in pieces from my Amazon. I don't actually have it. I don't have it easily available right now, but it was basically a tripod. It had legs that kind of projected out, and then I bought it was like a cell phone holder you'd use for a tripod. I'm looking. I got all this stuff in my bag. Basically, I bought this a cell phone holder, a little tripod with the legs, and then I used rubber bands to hold the Dowsing rods in the cell phone holder thing. So I made it myself out of parts from Amazon.
Okay, and we had another question about that. Carl asking, because I think some of your videos show the Dowsing rods on the stand, correct?
Yes.
That's what I thought. Yeah, as I remember seeing it from a distance and thinking, I want to talk to him. Of course, I never made it over there to ask you about it. And then I saw on a couple of your videos that I think it has it sitting on the stand. So, guys, go check those out. I'll put the link here in the description. We've got it in the show notes to where you can check his videos out. And let's see, Reflections of the Paranormal asks, have you ever saw what you thought was a soul leaving a body?
I haven't seen anything, but I've felt a couple of different things. As an internal medicine doc, I take care of patients from age 18 to the time they pass, and actually end up doing a lot of end of life care. People get to a point where we just can't get them better. So we call it, long term it's hospice care, but short term we call it making somebody comfortable or comfort care. And basically at that point you kind of decide we're going to stop unnecessary meds and labs, and we're just going to give you comfort meds, stuff for pain, nausea, anxiety, that kind of thing. So you're often present there, either right as sometimes somebody dies or right after they pass away. And there's been a few times where you could feel like an energy kind of move around the room, or you could feel a breeze move around. And I've been standing in a room with the family, and somebody's just passed away, and I kind of look around to see if anybody else is feeling it. And every now and then you can kind of see people, they'll notice it too. Like there's like a feeling that goes around the room. I have not seen it actually leave the body, and I've actually wanted to do an experiment about that. But I'd have to get all kinds of special permissions. I wanted to try to see if I could work with a hospice unit. It's in our building, and see if I could be present when people pass away and bring in some of my equipment, and do it professionally and with permission and all that. You'd have to do all the privacy things, but it'd be interesting to actually see if you could measure something leaving the body. And then another interesting experience I had is when somebody codes as a code blue, their heart stops and their lungs stop. I think I've talked about this before in other shows, but as a doctor, we kind of run the show, and we got to make sure everybody's doing what they're supposed to do. And we stand at the foot of the bed, kind of looking up towards the head of the bed, and we're telling different people, you do this, you do that, and kind of making sure the code's flowing along to save the person. And this particular person, we've been working on them for about 10 minutes or so, 10, 12 minutes. And I felt this rush of energy come from behind me. Now my back was to the wall, and there wasn't any vents around me, and there wasn't people moving behind me and moving in front of me. We were all kind of doing our thing. But I felt this rush of like wind and static electricity. It kind of went around me, through me, towards the patient. And then right after that, we got the patient's pulse back, and then eventually got his consciousness. Got him back to, breathing and his heart rate back. And we actually sent him out to our main hospital for, to be admitted over there. But, to me, it gave me the impression of his soul rushing back into him. And, what it made me think about is with near-death experiences, NDEs, people, when they're out of their bodies, when they're dead for a short period of time, they talk about the sensation of they're rushing back into their body. And that's what that's reminding me of, like almost as if this guy's soul was out of his body and then rushed past me, through me, back into him. So that was interesting, where I actually kind of felt this static kind of breeze go by me. So yeah.
Well, that was actually going to be my next question, because I was talking to a family member that had an NDE, and she was talking about the feeling, because she's perfectly fine now, and she talked about the feeling when she essentially passed, and she did say that she could see, and she talked about that rushing feeling. So I wondered if, with you experiencing end of life care and, codes and that sort of thing, I had wondered if you had ever talked to anybody who had experienced an NDE after what you had experienced, when you were dealing with, some of these codes where people actually do end up surviving.
Yeah. So, I haven't talked to people that I've been personally involved with where I was the doc. Just for whatever reason didn't work out. And I think a lot of times, a lot of that stuff kind of happened. I think I did more codes before I was really super into the paranormal like I am now. I mean, I've always been interested in it, but I didn't really start investigating and really doing everything I do now since till about like 2011 or 12. So I haven't had a chance to talk to people that I've resuscitated, but I've talked to patients who've been through it, and they'll have a variety of stories. When you look at near-death experiences, there's, depending who you read about it, there's either 12 steps, 10 steps, but there's usually a set of things that happen, and just briefly, I mean, you kind of leave your body, you can see yourself outside your body, you go through the tunnel, you have amazing colors, and you lose sense of time and space. A lot of times you see religious folks, you get a life review. Sometimes you get secret knowledge. You often get to a point in a near death where you're either told to go back or you have to go back. And then a lot of times when you do come back, you either have new abilities you didn't have, or if you had psychic abilities, you have stronger abilities. And it ends up changing people a lot. A lot of people who have been kind of dealing with a lot of crap in their life come back and they just totally reset. There's bad relationships, they get out of it, bad job, they get out of it. It's like they kind of have like a whole new release on life now. When it comes to near-death experiences, not everybody has all the steps. Like some patients have told me they were out of their bodies and they could see everybody working on them, and then they were back in their body. And then other people have had, I talked to my loved ones or I
Mhm.
talked to angels and they told me I had to go back. People talked about, the tunnel of light. So I haven't really personally got to talk to somebody who's kind of had all the steps.
Mhm.
I guy I talked to recently, it's about 3 or 4 weeks ago. I've been taking care of him for a while. The place I work at now, it's a satellite branch of the main hospital, but we do long-term kind of ongoing care. Like if you're still on a ventilator or if you got a wound that's real bad or IV antibiotics. So we're kind of set up to take patients for like a month or longer. So this guy had got to flying around. This guy had been with us for a long time and we just never talked about it. It just never came up about me doing paranormal. And then it did. He goes, "Oh man, I got to tell you about my near-death experience." And he had crashed his car, and they had to do all this stuff to get him out of the car. And a lot of it he shouldn't have known about. Like they had to use the jaws of life, and they still had a hard time. They had to break his leg to get him out, something
Wow.
like that. And he was able to know all these details that he should have known. But he told me, yeah, he was out of his body, looking down on the guys working on him, and then all of a sudden he was back in his body. Is what he remembers. But when the paramedics came to talk to him, the ones that kind of got him out, he was telling the paramedics all these different details, and they're like, how did you know that? How did you know? How did you see that? How did you know that? He goes, "Oh, I was floating above you guys. I could see it." And
Wow.
yeah, so it was pretty crazy. And he was a legitimate guy. I mean, he was a down to earth kind of dude. I think that's why we never really talked about it. It never really came up so much. But yeah, so he was able to tell them all these different techniques they were using, and it was stuff that he wouldn't have known unless he had the police reports or something like that. But
Yeah.
he said he had never seen any of that stuff. So
Wow. So let's kind of step back just a second and talk about what got you into this. Was it something that you experienced with? Because I always love when people combine things. Kind of like with you combining your scientific and analytic mindset, and of being a physician. Um, was there something that triggered and got you into that, or have you just always been interested?
So I think all my life I've had stuff happen since I was a kid, all kinds of things, and I think one of the big things that kind of helps too was I talked about this before is my family is they were real open to it and still are. My mom was more like really into angels and spirits and all that kind of thing, so we always talking about that stuff, and then my dad was more like Bigfoot ghosts, and we would compare ghost stories and all this kind of thing. So kind of like all, from the time I can remember, we were always talking about ghosts. We'd watch In Search of and all those, Legend of Boggy Creek. I remember when that came out. So we were all into all that kind of stuff. And my dad, when we were kids, we had this ragtop Jeep in the 70s. And we would go looking for Bigfoot in his Jeep. And I remember being scared out of my pants because it was a soft top. And I'm like, if Bigfoot comes out of the woods, he's going to tear this Jeep apart, And I just remember just keeping my eyes closed. Now it'd be cool as an adult because I'm into that kind of stuff. But I remember being a kid, and that's how my dad was. He was, kind of the paranormal. My mom was more like angels and spirits. But yeah, all my life, I'm, one of the things that happened to me. I always tell the story about my guardian angel, a little light figure. But I was going to tell you a different one. I think I saw my mom's doppelganger when I was probably like 5 or 6. I was outside playing, and back in the 70s, you played from sun up to sundown, and it was going to be evening time. So I wanted to come in. I went to the back door and I knocked on the back door, and it had a window, and then the rest of the door was solid, and the curtains parted, and my mom was standing there, who I thought was my mom. And she had this like really big evil smile on her face, and she would not open the door. She was had this evil smile, just laughing at me. And I'm like, I started crying. I'm like, why would my mom let me in the house? So I ran around to the front door and nobody would answer. Came back to the back door and started banging on the back door. This time the back door opened. It was my mom. And she's like, and I'm like, crying, upset, and everything else. And she's like, what's wrong? I go, you wouldn't let me in the door just a minute ago. You were standing in the door, like with this evil smile, laughing at me. She's like, Don. She goes, I was up in the bathroom. I couldn't come down. She goes, I heard you knocking, but I couldn't come down. So, but I saw what I thought was my mom, evil version of my mom in the door. So that was the kind of stuff I grew up, kind of experiencing, and, the knocks and the footsteps, and, I'd hear my name as a kid. I'd hear my name called from a distance, and I'd come running downstairs and, hey, who called me? And they're like looking at me like I'm crazy. Like, what do you mean? Nobody called you. So I don't know. So I've always seemed to kind of been in tune with it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really consider myself like a psychic or a sensitive or anything like that, but it seems like I've always just kind of had stuff happen. And then, eventually I went to medical school, and then I saw the shows, Ghost Hunters and Ghost Adventures, and I just got, hooked on the idea of trying to understand what I had been experiencing all my life, and even to this day, still experiencing those kind of things. So I think, having that kind of, family background and having experiences all my life, it just really opened to it. And then I started investigating just to try to understand it better. And then it's kind of morphed into this whole thing of trying to understand, is there the afterlife or not? So I know for myself, but also to tell my patients, all that kind of thing. So that's in a nutshell.
Well, I love it because, you having the position that you're in, I mean, it really lends a lot of credibility to what we do because, you've got investigators from all different walks of life that's out here doing this. But somebody who, has advanced degrees, who has the background that you have, I feel like that really brings the paranormal and what we do more into the mainstream.
Well, that's kind of my hope too. I want to bring more credibility to the field and let people know that there's something to this, because I've had all these experiences. Before I investigated, I had all kinds of experiences, but as an investigator, I've had all kinds of experiences, seeing things, all the equipment things, just that, hey, there's something out here. And I'm hoping that, being a doc who's doing it can say, bring more, make people more interested in it and all that kind of stuff. And you'd be surprised. A lot of my colleagues really support what I do, and they all have their own personal stories too. Just that doctors usually won't talk about it much. I think out of fear of, sounding silly, but for me, they'll tell me because I know, because they know what I'm doing and I'm open to it. So, but a lot of docs have, stories. So
is it a lot of things they've experienced where they work, or a lot of things that just, they've experienced around just because of what the stuff they're dealing with, I guess outside of the office?
A little bit of both, I'd say. Some of it's personal stuff. Like, people have told me about, they lost a relative and they feel like that relative visited them in one way or another, or it's been experiences in the hospital, ghost experiences in the hospital and those kind of things. So yeah, it's a whole mix. But a lot of people are really open to it. In fact, I've been surprised. A lot of people I thought would kind of, look at me like I'm crazy. They're like actually some of my biggest fans. They're like, man, I love what you're doing, and it's really cool. I want to go investigate with you, and and I'm like, really? I thought you would be like, kind of poo-pooing it, and so. But yeah, no, I haven't really. To be honest with you, Nobody's really come down on me for Everybody's like really interested, even people that I thought would be hardcore skeptics. I actually work with a guy. He's pretty conservative Christian guy, and he believes there's ghosts in our office where we work now too. And he's kind of funny. He goes, Don, there's something up here, man. I just pray to Jesus. I just pray to Jesus, and I just close my eyes. But even he, I was like, he thinks there's ghosts too.
I love it. And that leads to actually a couple of the different questions that we've got on here. Janet says, have you ever shared your investigative side with your coworkers or patients?
Oh yeah. Yeah. My coworkers, they think it's pretty cool. Actually, when my doctor friends find out, they're actually pretty interested. They actually get kind of curious about it. And we have some pretty good talks. I work with a lot of docs who are from India or India descent. And we get in these talks about how Hinduism looks at, the different layers of our souls, and how Buddhism looks at it and things like that. So it's kind of cool actually getting some interesting discussions. And then as far as my patients, they really like it when they find out. I don't announce it, but it eventually gets around because, like I said, we work in this little satellite hospital. We're set up for 40 beds, but right now we're only taking care of 10 patients at a time because of staffing shortage. But it gets around, and patients are like, hey, I heard you're a Dr. Ghost Hunter, and like, I got to tell you my story. And, so patients all love it too. And I think, there's been times over the years where it's come up near the the end of life for people. And I'll say, I think there is an afterlife, the people that are getting close to the end and families. And it does seem to help those folks. And the interesting thing too is we'll keep in touch. Like after the loved one passes away, they'll reach out to me through my Facebook or Instagram or whatever. And they're like, hey, you got to hear what happened. The light was flickering, or we smelled mom's perfume, or we heard dad's voice. And, because you get those after death occurrences, trying to think after death communication. So yeah, so it's kind of cool. And it seems to bring people peace, and they seem to like to be able to like to have a doctor who's willing to talk about that kind of stuff. So
Absolutely. Yeah.
I never
And
I never force it though. I'm always let them bring it up first, and then I'll talk about it.
well, and that's one of the thing, because I've dealt with hospice in several family situations, and they're just such blessings, and the
Mhm.
things that the way that they help, people move forward. And I've always sort of wondered if so, people have different theories, and they have different, I guess, tells whenever a person is getting ready to pass away. Someone that's worked in it for a long time, they can kind of tell how close
Yeah.
someone is getting. Do you have any theories on that afterlife communication? Like, do you believe that there's like a time frame after a person dies that there's more likely to be, like if it's within a couple days? Or what's your theory on that sort of thing? Is it more likely like right after someone passes away?
Usually, yeah. Usually, the biggest things happen right afterwards. But in some of the books I've read on it, and from people's stories, usually that first from the time of death for the first couple of weeks, but it can
Mhm.
go longer, and it could be, it can be kind of a lifelong thing. But usually, that first couple of weeks to a month, when you get the most things, it seems like that first 24 hours, people will report, the grandma was in Seattle and passed away, but then the person in the relative in New York saw grandma walk through the hall or come by and
Yes.
smile at them. So usually a lot of the real kind of big significant things seem to happen during that right at the time of death or near there or that first day of death. But it can be, a lot of different things. I mean, you know, electronics, stereos act funny, clocks act funny, smells, sights, pennies from heaven, all those kind of things. I actually, a lady I worked with, she actually was. So I used to be with the team, and then I left the team and started my own Haunted M.D thing around 2018, 2019. But my very first investigation, this Haunted M.D was a lady I worked with, and she and her mother were wondering if the dad was trying to communicate with them because they had these birds around their house that always were acting strange and would just kind of sit and look in the windows at them. And they said the bird just never really did that till after their dad to the dad or the husband had died, and he had died in a sudden car crash in the Outer Banks. And but it had been 2 years, so this stuff had been going on like 2 years, and they're like, we just want to get some answers. Is this my dad or my mom's husband or what? So you can go on for a long time, but yeah, we typically it's the first couple of weeks, especially the first 24 hours or so. So
That's one of the things I'd always heard, and I had investigated at a funeral home, and so that we were kind of getting in a conversation, and one of the guys who owned the funeral home was kind of giving some of their theories of things they had heard about the first couple days to a week, and I've always sort of wanted to get other people's takes on that
yeah.
because that's something I've always found pretty interesting.
Now I don't
Um,
know. I'm not sure the reason why. I think it's one of those things we'll never really know. I'm
mhm.
not sure if they're always with us, and the things they do are more subtle,
Mhm.
or do they actually move on and can't come back? Enough. I'm not sure. So
And of course, but they're not really being, it doesn't really seem like there's time. The time's irrelevant at that
right,
point.
right.
But I just wasn't sure if you had any theories on like, if there was like a time frame where they were sort of either like closer, um, or had other things they had to do. See, we got a couple more questions here. Um, let's see. Reflections of the Paranormal says, what equipment medically have you ever used or tried, and what was your thoughts behind it if you did?
That's a good question. That's a good question. Um, so we I was working on this project with a friend of mine named Chris Balsone and this guy Ali and another lady Sherry, and we were doing this thing. We are trying to actually get a TV show. It was called what was it? Paranormal 911 or Code 911 or Code
Hmm.
Paranormal, something like that. But we had this come up with this idea. Actually, Chris had kind of come up with the idea along with Ali about using an EKG machine hooked to a copper plate to see if you can pick up on energy. The idea is, an EKG, when you hook it to a body, it's measuring the electricity of the heart, which is pretty small. So the thought was, if you hook the EKG machine up to a copper plate that conducts energy, and you say, hey, if you're here with us, touch the copper plate, then you would think if energy is touching the plate, then you should see a spike on the machine. Mm-hmm. So we actually took that out to St. Albans in Radford. We had it hooked up to, we had a copper plate hooked to EKG wires, hooked to like a paramedic. There's an old paramedic EKG that had the paddles and the screen. And wouldn't you know it, we took it up to have you ever been to St. Albans?
I have.
Yeah, we went up to the suicide bathroom.
Uh-huh.
And we were up there and we put the copper plate up on the sink and the EKG machine on the floor. And we're like, hey, if anybody's in here, can you touch the copper plate? Sure enough, got a spike. It was crazy. And like, can you do that again? Sure enough, another spike. It wasn't like a regular heart thing. It was just an energy spike.
Like a blip, yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't like a QRS. It wasn't like a regular, heartbeat. But yeah, it happened several times. Yeah. So, and then I took a version of that and I used like a mini EKG hooked to a copper plate. And I've had a little bit of activity with that too. That's one of the things I want to kind of go out on my own and do some of my own work and see if I can use that more, because I just haven't really had a chance to put it to use on some of the other stuff I've been doing. So, but yeah. So that's an idea that I kind of borrowed and shared with Chris, and he's actually the paranormal paramedic. Mm-hmm. Chris Balsone. He's a real good guy. So EKG machine. I was going to try ultrasound too. I was curious. I have an ultrasound machine. It's a handheld one that you could find your heartbeat, and you could find like a baby's heartbeat. And I'd be curious to kind of see if anything can interact with that. Just tap on it, or because it's so sensitive that it wouldn't take much energy to have something tap on that probe and kind of communicate that way, or even potentially, I guess, hear stuff. But so I got that. And what else?
I wonder if a TENS unit would work, or would that be too subtle?
I don't know. Potentially, I guess. Potentially. The other thing that we tried, and this wasn't my idea either, but we tried at Hensdale House. I was working with a group of science guys and a parapsychology guy, and they tried wearing a portable EEG machine around. We just weren't sure. We're still not sure what to do with the data. So we, one of the guys wore I forget what that thing's called. There's actually, you can buy it on Amazon, and it helps you to like for biofeedback or brain feedback to kind of help with like relaxation and all that kind of stuff. You can kind of watch your brain waves and all that kind of stuff. We were curious, what would happen if you're wearing this device and you have a paranormal encounter, what happens that way. So we have this information, but we're not quite sure what to do with it yet. So so those are some of the things that we've used, that I've seen used or been involved with as far as medical equipment on paranormal investigation.
That's a great question, Vicki. Because that makes a lot of sense, especially if we believe, what we're dealing with is energy and energy fluctuations. I would think that would not only be easy to manipulate, but could essentially give sort of a charge to some of the activity.
Right. Well, and even with my little portable EKG machine, I've used it in the office a little bit. And I've got some hits on it. It's kind of curious hits. So, I like to be able to do some more work with it, maybe at at more of a traditionally haunted place.
Sure. Sure. Now is your office haunted?
I think it is, man. I think we all the docs kind of agree that work there. I'll just tell the story now real quick. So I'm a hospital-based doc. So all of our patients are in the hospital rooms in our building. Our office is kind of where we come and we set our gear down. If your backpack or your bag, and where there's like 4 computer stations where you can look up. Everything's on the computer now, as far as looking up vital signs and doing our charting every day. When you see patients, you got to do a progress note, kind of telling what you did for the patient that day. But in that area, in that workspace, just all kinds of things all the time. You'll hear so there some of the workstations you can't see from the other workstation. So I'll be at a certain area typing, and then I'll stop. I'll hear typing around the corner that I can't see, and I think I was by myself, and I'm like, did somebody come in here I didn't know? And they're typing, and I go look, and there's nobody there. It is pretty clear typing. It's not like you hear like one little bang. It's like, and you're like, what in the world? So you'll hear that. We have motion activated paper towels. I've actually posted that on my page. The motion activated paper towel goes off. Motion activated lights. Actually, I caught that. That's on my Haunted M.D Facebook page. The light turning on by itself in the bathroom. But yeah, disembodied voices. The other day, I had a cleaning lady about a month ago. A cleaning lady told me that one, that might be the one with the toilet. That might be the bath with the paper towel dispenser running.
Let's see. Yeah, when you finish your story, we'll play it here.
The cleaning lady the other day, she goes, she got really frightened. She goes, she thought I came back in the office because she heard a man's voice go, hello. And she thought it was me. And I was downstairs on the unit because our office is on the third floor. And I came in and she was like, her eyes were real big. She was, oh my God, I thought you were here, but you weren't. And it was like, yeah. So that's the kind of stuff that happens, you know?
Nice. And do you believe that that's just sort of residual activity from where you're at, or does it seem to be a pretty charged intelligence?
I think a lot of it's intelligent. And it almost seems like, you know, people asked me the other night if I believe in portals. And I was kind of iffy about portals, but if there is portals, I think our office could be a portal because it seems like a lot of things are coming and going through there, you know, because I don't think it's always the same energies. I think there's different ones that come and go through there.
And that makes a lot of sense. Tom says plus SLS activity too, right?
Oh yeah, Tom. Hey Tom. Tom's a great guy. He's been following my Haunted M.D since the get-go. So I've had the SLS camera in the office, and I've had some pretty good clips of catching the SLS figure that I think's a true figure that's not mapping like a door or the bed or something. And then I'll have it touch the K2 meter. Like there's one video on my site where I'm like, can you reach over and touch the K2 meter? And sure enough, you can see it reach over or get its arm and the K2 meter goes off, or the REM pod or something like that. So it's really, whenever I have the SLS camera and really any piece of equipment I'm using, I try to get other stuff to go with it. So yeah, good. Thanks, Tom. Yeah, I've got some really interesting SLS in the office too.
Okay, well, we'll play just a couple of these videos. Yeah, D Hoot says good video in the bathroom with the towel dispenser. So we'll play that here in a second. And I was just going to add on. I know what you mean when you talk about being able to have the SLS and have it actually either touch a flashlight and the flashlight go off, or touch the EDI plus and get an actual temperature change when you do it on command. Isn't that just amazing whenever the two work together?
That is, because a lot of people are like that SLS, that's crazy. Why do you even use that thing? I'm like, because if you understand how to use it, you get interesting stuff. You can't just throw it out just because you think it's a mumbo jumbo, you know. And that's what drives me crazy sometimes with what we do. Oh, that SLS is not doing anything. I'm like, but I think it is sometimes. I think it is seeing something, you know.
Yeah, I mean, you have to again. That's where knowing your equipment, finding the ways that creates a false positive, and also being able to, because I don't believe any tool works 100% of the time,
right?
You know, and I mean, I'm a firm believer if a spirit wants to communicate through a smoke detector or something, if there's some way that they want to send a message or to communicate with us, they can. And so, I completely agree with you. I get that a lot with the spirit box or with flashlights. I love to use the flashlights.
Yeah.
And yes, there have been times that people have been able to debunk the flashlights, but when you're using it in conjunction with say, for instance, the SLS, and you have a figure and you say, turn that flashlight on, and you literally see it touch it and the flashlight turns on.
Yeah. Or the other thing with the flashlight, to use a couple of flashlights, I've already had where you're using 2 or 3 and you'll have one come on and be like, well, can you touch the other one? Or can you touch the one on the end? Or you touch one in the middle and it does it.
Yes.
So when you get that kind of stuff, it's like, it could be coincidence, but that's a lot of coincidence. I'm like, when you start, especially on command, if you're like, okay, now do this and it does it, or reach out and do this, it's really hard. I mean, I know scientifically there's things can happen by chance, but sometimes it is what it is,
Yeah. You can't discount everything. And I mean, I've even had it to where I've, been holding a flashlight and had multiple flashlights, because I'm kind of a flashlight hoarder. I have like about 12 or 15 of them that I like to set up in different areas. And I'll take the flashlights and I'll, say, can you mimic this pattern? And
Yeah.
then I'll click it in a pattern. And I've had certain ones on command that you say, do that to the middle flashlight. Can you do this? And then it mimic what you're doing. And I don't know how to really explain that.
Well, for me, that's what kind of convinces me when I have those kind of interactions. Because I think for me, when I go into any kind of situation, I'm always expecting nothing to happen. So when something like that happens, you're like, and you really have done your justice or you've done your best to debunk it. I mean, you come out with, science or no science, I can't really explain that, except for a spirit or some kind of energy interacting with it,
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So we're going to play a couple of these videos here. Let's see. And so the motion activated paper towel dispenser. So that was in your office?
Yeah, this is the one that happens kind of frequently.
Okay. All right, let's see if we can get this.
And it's motion activated, so you can see the light come on first. And there was nobody. I just had the camera filming that. That was it.
Wow.
I wasn't even anywhere near it. Isn't that crazy? And I've actually caught in that bathroom, I've caught SLS figures. I've caught REM pod action. I've caught some EVPs in there. So that bathroom tends to be pretty active. We got two bathrooms like that. There's the bathroom with the toilet and the shower. Then the other one tends to be a little less active, although I caught the light coming on that one. So.
Gotcha. Let's see. And is this the, did you say you had the one on there with the SLS?
Yeah, I'm trying to look.
Let's see.
There's my EKG machine, mini EKG machine.
Oh, which one was that? Let's see here.
If you go back, this one, then go all the way, go down a row.
Okay.
And then go all the way across.
Yeah,
that's my mini EKG machine there.
Oh, that's really cool. Let's see here.
Hey everybody, it's Don on Haunted M.D, and here is a video of some experimentation with a mini EKG machine attached to some copper wire mesh. Now, this idea of using an EKG machine to detect anomalous energy sources is not my original idea. A friend of mine developed it, and I've kind of been trying different variations of it. So, the idea is that we think spirits and ghosts are energy, and we have various ways to try to detect that energy, using the K2 meter or static sensors and those sorts of things. So the idea with the EKG machine is the EKG measures our electricity in our body to check for our electrical activity of our heart.
Sounds pretty smart.
So the idea is if you attach the EKG machine to
I love that you explain it.
Then perhaps you can get interaction.
This is our office. Behind me is the office.
Give a signal.
Off to my left shoulder.
So in this video,
that's one of the bathrooms where the light comes on by itself.
Previous attempts we had used copper plates and actually had some interaction. So I thought, what if we use a mesh? The idea with the mesh is you could also cover more area and kind of roll it out. In this video, you'll see that I use just a small piece of mesh with the EKG attached to it. So then I also the first part of the video will show the setup, and then I actually test it with the battery. And then the second part of the video will show you some actual spikes that I think might be some anomalous energy fields. So see what you think and enjoy. So that the thing on the white thing is
this little
machine.
setup I'm trying here. And actually you can see little spikes on there. This is a mini EKG machine. Now it will time off sometimes. I got to hit it to turn the light back on, the backlight. But I ran some wires to copper mesh.
There's my cat balls
back there just to help verify if we get any interesting activity on this EKG screen. The idea behind this device is that, we're trying to detect energy. So if, we accept the idea that spirits are energy, then this is another way to potentially detect energy, because EKGs are sensing our electrical energy in our body. So by hooking wires to something conducts like copper, and potentially having something touch that circuit, we should be able to see a spike. Now I've tried this with a copper plate and had some interesting activity. Now this isn't my original idea. This is a friend of mine friend of mine's concept. But let me show you what happens if we put a battery. I got a 9.
So yeah, I wanted to show like if we get an energy
And
spike on there.
If you can see me.
So that's the energy of the battery.
Actually, see that timed out. So you
So
can
yeah,
see
you see the spikes with the battery.
right there. That's the battery touching. So that's shows you that the circuit works. So if something with energy touches the copper mesh, then it would make you think that potentially you're picking up on an anomalous energy source. I could touch it myself. See, I could touch it and it doesn't detect my energy. So is there anybody here with me? Is there somebody here with me? Ooh, got a little spike. See that little spike? Is there somebody here who wants to communicate? Can you touch the copper mesh? Use your energy. Can you give me a big spike?
That is too cool. Wow.
Yeah. So, anyways, you end up seeing if you see a little spikes, you can't like there's some little bumps.
So you want to make sure you have a good
blip. So yeah,
it looks like it's pretty steady. It is getting a little bit of wobbly there. So what I'm really looking for is to see a nice big spike, like I seen with that with the battery. All right, can you give me more energy than that?
In this next clip, you're going to see this where I get some pretty good spikes. Copper mesh in the office. And you're going to see some blips on the EKG machine. Blips. What I was looking for is to see spikes, pretty good size spike. That indicate that something, some energy was potentially touching the copper mesh. Now it's hard to know how big of a spike you'd expect because there are, in some instances, there are some little spikes. But for me, I was trying to really get something, definitive to show itself. So see what you think.
On the ground?
Right there. You see that?
No way.
Yeah.
That spike that we just saw. Can you touch it again? Can you touch the copper mesh again for me? On the floor?
See right there, those are interesting kind of.
Looks like something's
a little wobbly, but yeah, those ones that kind of dip down or go up.
Really grab a hold of that mesh, make a big spike. So that green line there should be a flat line.
Yeah, I think that's all kind of baseline there. When you see it dip quite a bit or go up,
you see I got those huge spikes.
Yeah, like right there. Yeah.
Are you monkeying around with that?
Yeah, like that. That's interesting.
Are you trying to give me a sign of your presence?
Right there. That's a good one. Yeah, so that was kind of cool. That was right in our spooky office.
Okay. If you're here with me, can you touch it right now?
Yeah, see, isn't that cool? It looked like something potentially touched it.
Yeah. Wow, that's so cool.
Yeah. And what I was doing with the mesh idea was I was thinking, how can I cover more area instead of a copper plate? Like, could I put that mesh in a doorway, hook it to the EKG machine, and see if anything comes through the mesh, kind of thing. So,
I don't have my mic muted. That's fascinating because what a better way to use that use of a tool, I guess, because it's something that it measures energy. It's known, by it's not a foreign tool, because with some of these spirits that we're interacting with, and to be able to get those, that's some pretty significant spikes.
Yeah, I was impressed. I was questioning it, but yeah, something had to be monkeying with the mesh. I don't think it was vibration or anything like that. And, especially when you're like touch it and you see something, to me, that was pretty compelling. I think I just got to do more work on it and all that. So.
Well, and the fact too, that you touched it and it really didn't do anything.
Yeah. And you can see with the battery when you use an energy source. Yeah.
And so that was what, a 9-volt that you touched?
Yeah.
Okay. So, so I guess you could technically, and I don't know a lot about reading, those monitors and stuff, but could you actually register how, not necessarily the voltage, but if a 9-volt, does so much, can you actually register how much energy one of those spikes are?
You could, yeah, because the machine's calibrated. I'd have to look and see. But yeah, you can get a rough idea in the millivolts.
Okay.
Millivolts, because because you can actually change on that little handheld. You can change the size of the spikes by how much the voltage it's showing. Now on the bigger machine, like we had used originally at St. Albans, you can get a printout, and you can definitely measure. As long as it wasn't off of the graph, you could measure the voltage. So yeah, you could get some idea of the energy.
That would be pretty interesting to know just how much, and you could kind of, I guess, see what you're dealing with, because and that's like K2s for some reason. I don't use them very much. Some of the people I investigate with use K2s a lot, and I know I've always heard that the milligauss on the readers are maybe a little bit off on just the generic regular K2 meters. But to me, I mean, that's a pretty sophisticated yet simple tool, the EKG monitor. I saw where someone had mentioned up here, asked if, said, what about a defibrillator?
Yeah, well, so the one device we use at St. Albans, it was a defibrillator EKG machine, but we didn't actually use a defibrillator. I'm not sure how you could use that.
Because it charges, right?
Yeah, because you're going to deliver a charge. Now, I guess if you wanted to try to deliver the charge into the air, you could do that. Or if you wanted to use it as a trigger object, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure how it would apply to investigating, unless you wanted to discharge some energy into the atmosphere or into the air around you.
Yeah.
Now, some of the defibrillators, like the automatic defibrillators you see like in the airport, they read electricity and then decide to deliver a charge. So I guess it just kind of depends what you're doing. And then some of the paddles actually now I think about it, some of the paddles on some of the defibrillators, you can actually lay them on the chest and you can get a rough picture of the EKG before you shock them. So I guess it just depends if you're using the defibrillator to read the electricity or if you're talking about delivering a shock. If you're talking about delivering a shock, I'm not sure how you would use it, but if you were going to use it to try to detect energy, you might be able to do it.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, that's very cool. And Walter says there seems to be an intelligent response to your voice and thoughts with using the mini machine that you were using.
Yeah, I was actually surprised because I didn't really expect to get anything. I was just gonna kind of get it out, and I wanted to do a little video because I thought it'd be a cool thing to I'm always trying to find new content for my page, and I'm like, it'd be kind of cool to mess around with this. And then sure enough, I start getting spikes. Well, all right, we'll take it, and so but it seemed like something there. And that part of the office, I've had other stuff with the REM pod and the cat balls where I've gotten some intelligent interactions with different potential spirit energies or different, energies.
Well, Janet asked, she said, in that EKG video, have you ever had that closet over your shoulder open on its own?
No, yeah. So that's the bathroom. The one that was on to the left of me was with the light on was the bathroom, and then behind was the door. That was actually a little bedroom suite. That's part of the main office. So there's the main office, then there's the two suites. You can close the door. So the door that was directly behind me, that would be to close the door to close the bedroom. But yeah, there is some closets out in the main hospital that was in the video, or the main office. No, I've never had those open up, but I have had the lights turn on in the bathrooms and the paper towel dispensers run. But I haven't had the doors open up. Although I've asked for it, but they don't open up. Now, I have had something knock on the door, on the main door coming into the office. It was in the morning time. I was working overnight. About 6 a.m, there was a loud knock on the door. And we always tell the nurses if they call us and we don't respond, just come bang on the door because maybe we didn't hear the page or something. So I thought I missed a page or something because I worked overnight. And I was sitting real close to the door. So there was a knock, like boom, 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 boom. And I was like, what the heck? So I opened the door and there was nobody there. And there was no way they could have ran away. So that kind of physical stuff happens where you're like, and it wasn't like, I think I heard a little knock. It was like boom, 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 boom. I was like, and I was like, I was blown away because there's just no way that somebody could have got away. So that somebody would have knocked and got away that fast. I mean, I opened the door like instantly. So, but yeah, there's all kinds of noises like that and bangs and.
Well, as far as the places you've investigated, and looking through your videos and stuff, I know, Fleetwood Church, and I know
Yeah.
that a lot of locations there near where you or in the area where you live. Do you have a favorite type of location, whether it be like a jail, a hospital, or battlefield? Do you have a favorite type?
You know, not necessarily. I mean, every place is kind of interesting to me. One of the places here locally that it seems to kind of call out to me is this place, Miller Kite in Elkton.
Oh,
It's an old Civil War home. It was Stonewall Jackson's headquarters for a while during the Valley campaign. And then it was back to being a house, but they've restored it into like a Civil War museum. So it kind of has the period stuff. It has a display area where it's the family that owned the home actually fought for the Confederates. So there's some of their guns and their clothing and some of the bullets and things like that. So there's a lot of like stuff from the Elkton area. So that's like kind of a fun place to go. Swannanoa, I just went to that recently, is one of my favorites too. It's this big marble mansion this man, Mr. Dooley, built for Mrs. Dooley back like in the 1912, 1915, somewhere around there, which is this huge place, and they're trying to restore it. Some of it's in good shape, some of it needs some work, but it's this beautiful mansion, and that place always seems to have crazy activity too. And the thing about that place is we're lucky to get in there. They don't let teams investigate, and the only way I get to kind of investigate is I tag along with this group, Cherie and Chris of Lunar Paranormal, and they do a lot of cat rescue events. And so Cherie asked me to kind of work with them. So that's the only way we can get in there. They won't let teams get in. So, but every time we go there, we have interesting interactions and all that kind of stuff. So probably locally, Swannanoa, Miller Kite, my favorites.
nice. Have you ever done mini hospitals?
Yeah, oh yeah, closed up hospitals. Yeah, I haven't really, haven't officially did a working hospital, but but yeah, I've done like old nursing homes, like up in Hillview Manor. I've been to the Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum. What else? I haven't been to Old South Pittsburgh. Crescent. We were up at Crescent just recently. I went up there with spirit guides. It was a TB sanitarium, and then psych hospital, then jail. So yeah, so sometimes you try to see if I can get anything to trigger with me being a doctor.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. So yeah.
Yeah, I wondered. I actually had Ronnie D on the show a few weeks ago that owns Old South Pitt Hospital, and he just opened up Old Harriman Hospital, which is like about 45 minutes from here.
Oh,
and
wow.
He was giving me some different theories on hospitals and such. And so I wondered. I've investigated with nurses before, but never investigated with a doctor, and didn't know if you had experienced anything kind of using yourself, I guess, in some of your daily tools as trigger items.
Sometimes we do. Sometimes hey, I'm a doctor. Do you need some help? And then you'll start getting some interaction. And at the Miller Kite place, we've had soldiers kind of talk about being wounded and injured and needing help. And then I think even at Crescent, when we were up there was somebody saying help. Some EVP saying help, that kind of thing. So sometimes it triggers different things.
Very cool.
Oh, then actually in New Market Battlefield, that's actually a cool place too. You really can't investigate there formally, but we kind of sneak in there and do that. We buy a ticket and we do historical stuff, but we take some gear with us. And there seems to be a surgeon there that likes to interact with me, but he won't interact with anybody else, especially women. He won't interact with women, and he only wants to interact with me as a physician. So it does kind of help sometimes, I guess.
Interesting. We got just a couple more questions over here. And, if anybody, we're getting close to wrapping up here soon. So if you've got any last minute questions, go ahead and get those over here into the chat room. Sheila Brown asked, she said, have you ever known someone with a pacemaker being affected?
That's a great question, especially talking about the EKG machine. Mm-hmm. I haven't, no, but I've been on investigations where people start feeling, woozy or lightheaded and all that kind of stuff. But to my experience on investigations, no, I haven't. And I haven't heard of any, but it's not to say that it doesn't happen.
Do you ever measure any of the physical response that, because I know sometimes mediums and psychics and such will, start to feel things, but, have you ever had like an everyday average person that's maybe not, maybe they are sensitive, but maybe they're not a medium, but they start to get certain responses, like they'll get sick or they'll get heart racing or something. Have you ever experienced that and measured, like maybe worn a heart monitor or even something as simple as like a Fitbit or something? Have you ever been able to measure any of those physiological responses that sometimes people seem to catch in some of these places?
No, I haven't measured them, but I know what you're saying, that people do get those feelings and all that kind of stuff. But no, I haven't measured them. That actually would be a kind of a cool project. Now, my friend that I was talking about, Chris Barlsone, he had been working on an idea of that where you kind of measure vital signs. I think the tricky thing is when you're investigating, is trying to pick apart what's your natural fear response. Yeah. Even if you think you're not afraid, I mean, your sympathetic system, I mean, you can start revving up, and not realize it even before, your heart can start racing before you realize it. So it's a little tricky to sort out, is this a paranormal response or is this my natural physiologic response to a fear situation? Because even like sometimes when your hair starts sticking up, sometimes you got to sort out, is that a fear reaction? Because your body will do that as a, when you're gearing up, if you're going to gear up for fight or flight, you can get that response. So you got to try to sort out, is that me being afraid or is something touching my arm doing that? So yeah, so it would be interesting. Yeah. And people have, had those complaints. Now, interestingly, I have had some mediums. There's one lady I work with, her name's Merlin. She's actually kind of partially blind, but she can see a little bit, but she has some psychic abilities, and she'll start looking up at the ceiling. And we were at Hinsdale investigating. She's like, he's up on the ceiling right there. So I was like, I took the SLS camera, and sure enough, there was a stick figure up on the floor or ceiling where she was seeing it. So that was kind of cool to have some kind of validation with a paranormal piece of equipment. She's like, he's right there, and sure enough, there was a stick figure.
Wow.
That was a cool experience. Were you able to verify, with some form of instrument, a medium psychic feeling kind of thing. So.
Well, and there was something you just hit on when you were talking about the fight or flight experience. I've actually wondered, because you'll hear people talk all the time about, I love my EDI Plus box. Because,
yeah, me too. I love them.
That's probably my favorite.
Right here.
Yes, mine's that same color too. And, I love that. And, so you'll hear people say, oh, I'm feeling cold chills, and you'll see them, and like they'll have the chicken skin, the hair standing up, and everything.
Yeah.
Something you just said actually is something I've always sort of wondered, if the response, if we're actually feeling a cold response, because sometimes you'll get the validation through the temperature drop. Other times you don't see a temperature drop. You can shoot a thermal on it. You don't see a difference or anything.
Right.
And I have like these little miniature, they're just little miniature temperature gauges that you can just, stick on something. So I've always sort of wondered if that was just like a physiological response, like our body was sort of having a fear response and maybe not necessarily having a cold, like an actual temperature drop. Right. Or if it was the temperature drop affecting our body.
Right. And that's what you got to sort out. Yeah. Cause it could be a real, it could be a real response, especially if you're not, I think it was something you don't expect. Like you're walking through and everybody's chit chat and you're not really thinking about being afraid or anything. And all of a sudden, wham, your hair stands up and you got a cold feeling. I think that's probably something external that's, could be paranormal, or at least some kind of external thing happening. Whereas, if you're kind of like, oh man, I heard a noise and I saw a shadow, and then all of a sudden your hair standing up, that might be more of a fear response. So, kind of your sympathetic nervous system kind of firing up. So yeah, so it gets to be a little tricky to kind of sort it out.
Yeah. And then Walter says, have you ever had a defibrillator battery drained by a person who doesn't want to be revived? And then he tags on to that and says, my late wife always left her body during operations and watched from above,
Oh, wow.
telling her doctors what they said when she was unconscious. That's interesting, Walter.
Wow. Yeah. 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 How many times did she have that happen? I wonder.
That's great question.
Yeah.
And the fact that she remembers. I mean,
So, with the defibrillator, in my experience over the years, I've been doing it for like 21 years. I can't remember where the battery didn't work. Because there's been times. Sometimes you shock people several times. You got, you put it, you go ahead and now we got these different you got stickies now you stick on the chest, and you charge it, then shock them, recharge the unit and shock them. So I've never seen where we couldn't deliver a shock because the battery was dead. That's a good question though. But my personal experience, no, I'm not saying that it couldn't happen. Unless for some reason it was a defective machine, or I guess potentially, there was some kind of major paranormal energy you could drain and dry. Now I have been on investigations where we've had equipment batteries get drained unexplained. You got new batteries in everything, and for some reason some of the equipment's dead. Especially cameras. That tends to happen on. So so there is battery drainage of some of the paranormal equipment, but I haven't seen where the defibrillator unit itself got drained.
Gotcha. And Walter just responded, and he said 21 operations for cardiomyopathy, breast cancer, and uterine cancer. Wow.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Wow. That's a lot. Wow.
Yeah.
Well, again, like I said, if anyone has any last minute questions, go ahead and get those in. Great questions tonight, and
yes,
great
absolutely.
interaction.
Hey, have you noticed with your EDI Plus? Have you noticed that you'll start seeing like barometric pressure changes when you're going to have something paranormal happen?
Yes,
I've noticed that like right before something else will happen, you'll start seeing barometric or humidity changes. Have you noticed that too?
I've seen those happen more than I don't always pay a lot of attention to the sharp temperature jumps there.
Yeah.
But when there's a pressure change, it always seems like I either get some kind of interesting EVP or some type of actual physical response, not that sort of thing. I really tend to pay more attention to the pressure change, even more so than the humidity. But
me too.
I've noticed the two. Yeah.
I've even had a couple of instances where I've had kind of everything going off, like the temperature, humidity, and barometric pressure. And then bam, something happens. Whatever SLS figure, or you hear noise, or the REMs. Whatever it is, something paranormal will happen. Within a certain amount of time frame of all that kind of atmospheric changes.
Yeah, and that's why I love that tool, because you can just really take it with you in real time. And I haven't really got the grasp completely with the mapping, because sometimes I'll record it and map it onto the little that's on there, and it's kind of a pretty complex little mapping system, but you can see when those changes. And so that's one of the tools. Anytime I'm, because I do a lot of static cameras and stuff, and then I'll go to different spots, and because I'm typically investigating either alone or with a videographer, that's a tool I always have with me, because it just seems like, setting the baseline, or I'll have my little mini temperature gauges and stuff, anything to try to measure that atmospheric changes, because I feel like they relate. And that's one thing too, I always note at the start of all of my videos and investigations. I always take stock of, the temperature inside, outside, the barometric pressure,
good.
All that stuff, just to see, even moon phases, just to see if there's anything. Sometimes I can find a correlation, but honestly, it's kind of hard, when you start talking moon phases and seasons and stuff. It's sort of hard, because I feel like to get a true accurate reading to see if something changes, you kind of have to have as many of those environmental factors lined up together,
It's funny you mentioned that too. There's a team here in Virginia. It's called CPRI, Centers for Paranormal Research and Investigation. They do a kind of a hardcore scientific paranormal investigating, and they actually look at all that stuff too. With and I'm not doing this any justice, but when you talked about the cycles, we're looking at the cycles, the moon cycles and the electromagnetic cycles, and they noticed that certain phases of the cycle that there tended to be more potential paranormal activity. And I'd have to go back and look at it, but it was interesting because they looked at all that stuff and they had all this satellite data. They have a whole variety of people on their team that are, there's some physicians and science people that work for the government and have access to some of the satellite data. They kind of look at all that kind of stuff, and they were able to see that with the different cycles and in the seasons and stuff, that in the moon, in the moon cycles and all that, that there was a correlation that was kind of curious to see.
Yeah, I've always wondered. I did an investigation at the Nickerson Sneed House with Jake Fife, and so I investigated with him first, and then I investigated by myself a few months later. And so I really wanted to see if the activity that I got with Jake was the same.
Yeah.
If, with me investigating by myself, just to see kind of how our energies and stuff were. And, there was some interesting similarities and there was some interesting differences because I tried to do a lot of the same experiments as well. But I was finding, it is hard unless you do it, even though I did it once in the spring and then did it a little bit later on in the summer. I think the moon phase one was like a waxing gibbous moon and the other was waning. Even if I had hit them, I think like on the same moon cycle, you're still in like a different season. So I thought to really get accurate, I would almost need to investigate, right around the exact same time just to see if that played a factor into it. So it gets kind of hard when you start looking at some of that stuff, because even then it's like, well, the season was different. The weather was different that day. It's just kind of hard to get every single thing to line up. But I'll have to look into that team that you mentioned, just because I love it when people, kind of start digging into the scientific elements just to see if any of that, plays a factor on it.
Yeah, they do a pretty good job. I mean, they're pretty much all science-based. Like, they don't really do any K2s or any of the store-bought stuff. So, but yeah, CPRI and Rob Bradley, he's kind of the contact person. But yeah, I've gone out with them a couple times and all that. But they're a good group of people and really trying to get to the science of it all.
Yeah. So. And I think there's a mix. I mean, to be honest, I think that some stuff is just, you just can't explain scientifically.
Yeah. Like
some of it is,
earlier,
yeah. So it just really depends. But I love looking at all aspects of it and your take as well. So go ahead and I know we've got some different links in the show notes. We've pulled up some different sites and stuff. I know Dr. Molnar has a ton of really interesting videos. So if you like the ones that we showed here on the show, please go on, subscribe to his channel. You're going to be binging for a little while because I know he's got some really good, interesting videos on there. But what are some of the places if people want to either, find out more about, your speaking engagements or projects you've got coming up? What are those sites that they can go and find this at?
Yeah, sure. So my main one and kind of the whole thing that started Haunted M.D. was my Facebook page. So Facebook, it's Haunted capital HAUNTED MD, M.D. That's kind of where I put a whole lot of stuff. All the videos that are on my Instagram and my YouTube are on my Facebook, but also on Facebook, I've done a lot of text or written out kind of stuff about, different things like DMT and, why we see spirits out of the corner of our eyes. So yeah, so my Facebook page is a bunch of stuff. Instagram is Haunted M.D, Haunted with a little H. Then there's a little subblock or little underline between Haunted and then M.D for Instagram. And then YouTube is Don Molnar, Haunted M.D.
Okay.
My YouTube, I pretty much have, it's all just videos. What I did early on in my early on in my Haunted M.D career was I did a lot of videos teaching about equipment. I thought about going back to doing some of that, or even just replaying some of that stuff, but like, K2s and how do you use them, what's good, what's bad with them, the SLS. I did a whole thing about the SLS, pretty much all the big equipment I've done little instructional videos on, and and all that kind of thing. So, and then like I said on my Facebook page, I do a lot of kind of written out things in addition to the videos. And then I kind of right now I've been slumping a little bit, so I need to get back to finding some content to put out there and all that. But and then the other thing I try to answer questions and interact with people as much as possible. If you have comments, if I don't see them right away, I try to get to them within a couple of days or so. But I try to be pretty interactive, and if there's things I don't know, I'll try to find somebody that maybe knows them. Or I've even had people reach out to me that needed help on an investigation, but it was too far for me. So I'd find teams that were in their area and kind of reach out to those teams and say, hey, can you go help this person out or whatever? So yeah.
Nice. And I've got over here in the comments, I just put the Haunted MD on Instagram. So go in there, check that out. Also, these links that I just posted on here, these will take you, if anyone goes back and watches the video on Facebook, this will actually post live links on here. So
yeah, it's pretty much just Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube.
Yeah.
What I have right now.
Okay. So guys, definitely go check out Dr. Molnar's videos with Haunted MD. Check those out, binge those, subscribe to his channel. And if anyone wants to come hear you speak, what events you got coming up? I know we talked about this earlier.
So kind of slowing down a little bit right now. The big one I have is Gettysburg. I gotta look and see when that is. I'm going to be talking on Friday. I think it's at 1:30. Did you pull that one up? Gettysburg it's on the 9th, so it's the August 19th through the 21st. It's kind of all weekend. I'm going to be there on the 19th and probably part of the Saturday on the 20th. And I might head home on Saturday. But it's a good event. It's for wounded warriors, and they have people from all levels of paranormal community. From people that aren't well known to the TV people. Like Scott Porter, Stephanie Burke. Drawing a blank, but a lot of the real, the kind of the famous people will be there too, and everybody kind of donates their time. And then there's also live music, food, wrestlers, local wrestlers will come out. Yeah, Gettysburg Bash. So it's really cool. They have speakers, a lot of vendors. It takes up like 2 or 3 like conference rooms. They open it up a big space at the place, and it's a good time.
Yeah, I mean, it just seems like everybody goes to that event. I mean, just great speakers, and of course Pam and the Gettysburg Ghost Exchange, just fantastic people.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then I'm really kind of slowing down. I have I'm going to be doing a public event for Halloween with Lunar Paranormal at Swananoa again, and then kind of just relaxing a little bit. I got some family stuff coming up and all that, and then I want to start this project where I kind of go out on my own a little bit. And this means this is nothing against anybody I work with. I love everybody I work with, but I kind of want to go out solo and just kind of go back to some of the places and see, what do I experience by myself, just to kind of convince myself one way or another about things. So I want to do that, but I really haven't started. I haven't started organizing that yet. And then I've had a few people reach out to me for some private investigations. I got to try to figure that out too. And, but yeah, that's kind of it for right now. And then I'm working on trying to write a book. I started writing it. I got to get back to doing it. But I was going to write a Haunted M.D book, kind of about my history and then about how doctors look at paranormal, that kind of stuff. So that maybe over the next year or so, that may be something you'll see.
Nice. Well, we'll definitely have to have you back on, because I know I've got some more questions, and I know we've got some people that have messaged and stuff with some interesting questions. So we'll have to see about getting you back on, especially as you have more events and as you have some of these projects, because I know I've seen over the last little bit where you've been doing some of these project investigations and tests and stuff. So you're always welcome, Dr. Molnar, anytime that, you're working on something and you want to come on and promote it or, share your findings. We definitely love to have you on here.
Cool. Thank you. Thanks.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Absolutely. So I'm going to pull you out of the screen here for just a few minutes and
Okay.
cover just a few last minute things that we got going on. And if you got a few minutes, stick around.
Sure.
And I'll tell you goodbye after we get off here, and we'll kind of chat for a few minutes.
Cool. Thanks, everybody.
Absolutely. Thank you all, and thank you so much for your questions. Yeah, like I said, just Dr. Molnar, just a fantastic person, and you're definitely going to want to go check out his videos, especially if you liked what we showed earlier, and just some of his interesting experiments that he's covered. So, like I said, we've got some really cool things going on here at the jail. I don't know, at some point. It was really kind of strange. At some point, I thought I heard a woman out there in the hall. It could have been somebody outside. I'm not sure, but I heard that just a little bit earlier. So if any of you guys heard anything, saw anything during the show, feel free to send me a message. We always like to go back and check that out. But like I said, we've got the Red, White, and Boo event that's coming up here at the historic Scott County Jail this weekend. Lots of dates open. Ghost Walk tomorrow night, Friday, July 1st, kicking that off. We got a couple tickets left if you want to get in on that. I think we've got 4 tickets left. Get in there and get those tickets booked before 4 o'clock tomorrow, and you can join us on our 2-hour haunted history ghost walk and flashlight tour. And then just throughout the weekend, we've got flashlight tours booked, and then on the 4th of July on Monday, extended hours with games back in the recreation exercise yard with every adult general admission ticket that is purchased. Come win some cool historic Scott County Jail swag and prizes, and just spread the word. We are kind of back here off the main drag here, off the main square. So while people are, visiting the food trucks, visiting the booths, and, enjoying all of that, the parade, it does come down here, circles right in front of the jail, and just a few steps beyond the courthouse. Come on back. Don't forget about us and check us out this weekend, because again, we've got some really, really super things. And thank you, Nancy. I hope we have a great turnout as well. We will be sharing more stuff about that on the historic Scott County Jail Facebook page, as well as the website, and then on this page as well, just to kind of remind everybody, because this is going to be our first 4th of July that we've been open. So we had just got the keys to the jail this time last year, and was working on, some of the cleanup and getting the museum renovated and everything. So this is going to be our first time. So we're super excited about that. And then also some really cool Ghost Biker events that are coming up this fall. There are 2 that's coming up that we don't have tickets out for just yet, but you're going to want to keep an eye on those. September, let me make sure I'm saying the right date. September 10th, I'm going to be hosting a haunted motorcycle ride during the day up at Franklin, Kentucky, Octagon Hall. And then in the evening, we're going to have a VIP ghost hunt. So if you ride a motorcycle, you can still come ghost hunt. But if you don't ride a motorcycle, you can still come do the ghost hunt with us, because those will be 2 separate events, but they're going to be on September 10th. And then also the Deep South Paracon in Alabama is going to be September 23rd and 24th. Stan Fikes with Wiregrass Paranormal's putting that on. And then also, this is going to be a really, really cool event. I always love my Harley Davidson events, getting to partner with different Harley Davidsons around the country. And on on September 30th and October 1st, I'm going to be partnering with Wildcat Harley Davidson out of London, Kentucky, and also the London Laurel Tourism Commission out there. This is going to be a huge event. It's going to be a 3-day event. It's going to be a meet and greet on Friday night. It's going to be a ride on Saturday morning. It's going to be a ghost hunt on Saturday evening, and then it's going to be a special tour on Sunday. So we're going to have, it's going to be a 3-part thing, partnering with the Tourism Commission in London Laurel and also the Harley Davidson there. So that one, we're still working on the details of that and trying to kind of finalize that up. But once we get that completely finalized, we're going to have tickets available. Some of it's free, some of it is ticket oriented. I think that the motorcycle ride is going to be free, but we are going to limit the amount of spots that we allow on the motorcycle ride because we will be stopping at some different locations and then also, riding around. So yeah, a lot of stuff coming up with the jail, a lot of stuff coming up with Ghost Biker here in the fall. And then of course we've got the calendar open for paranormal investigations here at the jail all through the remainder of the year. September and October is booking up pretty quick, but if you want to get a private paranormal investigation booked, those go from 8:30 at night till 3 in the morning. So we've got the schedule open for a few days during spooky season, but for the most part, that's booked. So if you want to get in on that, go ahead and get those dates in. You go under the paranormal section of our website, www.historicscottcojail.com. And then also just a quick mention of the paranormal research study. I know we got some folks over here in the chat room that has participated in the research study that we've been conducting here at the jail. We are still working with the detective to get answers to, to the submissions that have come in. So, and we're still working on a couple little minor things on our end of it with some of the study that we've been doing, but we hope to be announcing that within the coming months. So stay tuned for more information on that as well. So anyways, we're going to go ahead and wrap this up. We've covered a lot of business, covered a really cool topic. I hope that everyone has an amazing 4th of July. Stay safe out there and enjoy that time with your friends and family. And next week, on the show at, of course, 9 p.m. Eastern time, as always. I will be having, let's see here. I will be having Miss Kristen Lee from the Belair House. We're going to be talking about all the cool things that she's got coming up, as well as the Belair House. I know she's someone that's been so busy filming, and she's always conducting different studies and events there at the Belair House. So you're not going to want to miss that. And then the week after that, we've got Fallen Hour podcast, a Fallen Hour paranormal podcast that's going to be back on. We're going to be talking about some really cool topics with some of the research that they've been doing as well. So again, have a happy and safe 4th, and we'll talk to you guys here soon. Take care.